Hello,
Hello.
welcome back to our channel. We have a really interesting topic to discuss today, and let's start by introducing ourselves.
My
You
name
go.
is Man. I'm from Lithuania, Europe. I lived there for many years. Now I live in England.
And I am Gohar. I am from Pakistan, and we have both lived in the UK for quite some years. And let's get into the video. So, today our topic is to discuss the similarities and differences in our languages. So, my native language is Urdu, and
My native language is Lithuanian.
we live in the UK, so we are very familiar with English. And also in our countries, there are lots of different languages. So we will discuss all of them, the similarities and what is unique, how we have navigated around the languages. So that's about it for the video topic. So neither of us are professional linguists, but we are really interested in the language and the culture topic. And all the information that we are discussing in this video, it's either based on our own personal experiences or based on our research. We have also been inspired by a few YouTube channels. One of them in particular is called Lang Focus. We'll link it down in the description below. Check out their videos, they are so informative, and the guy is a language expert. Yeah, they
Yeah,
are
he
really good.
speaks many languages.
Yeah, speaks many languages. He just drills down to the roots of where how languages overlap. So it's really interesting if you like language related topics. Let's start with how many official languages are spoken in each of our countries. So maybe you go first.
So in Lithuania, there is one official language, Lithuanian. Also, nowadays, English is being understood fairly well, fairly wide. And it used to be a case where Russian was popular, but now it faded out of popularity, and now more and more people don't understand Russian. So, in summary, just Lithuanian and English.
When you mention Russian, were you taught that in school?
Yes, at school, as a second foreign language, we had Russian, but nowadays I'm aware that school students can have a choice of choosing almost any language, including French, Spanish, and many more.
Because, yeah, I have heard from Lithuanian people that some of them also speak German. So maybe they have taken the optional subject in school.
For my first foreign language, I had a choice between English and German, and I chose English.
Okay, yeah, okay, makes sense. So in Pakistan, we have like a lot of languages. So there are 70 plus recognized languages, and there could be more. I think there are lots of languages in Pakistan region, also in the Indian subcontinent area. So that's part of like India or Bangladesh. There are many languages that are spoken, and not all the languages are actually recognized or official languages, but like a lot of different set of population would speak a different language. So we have like official language in Pakistan is Urdu and English. So Urdu everybody in Pakistan would know, but English is mainly taught in schools, and like a lot of official work is also done in English. And so over there not everybody goes to this school, but if people go to the school, then there is a chance that they would have some understanding of English, and a lot of people do understand English. And but if you go to the sector where people haven't don't have access to education, like a very lower class sector, then they might not know English, but they would still know words of English. So if you try to communicate, they would know words from it, but they might not be able to fluently speak it. So English is quite popular as well, and Urdu everybody knows. And then there are provincial languages. For example, I am from Karachi, which is in a province called Sindh, and so based on that, we had Sindhi as a compulsory subject in school. So we were taught Sindhi and we just learned it. I didn't practice it much, so it sort of faded away a little bit. But even if now, if I go to interior Sindh regions, it sort of comes back and then I can communicate with people. So yeah, the similar way, if there are different provinces, there are different like provincial languages. And then even apart from that, there are like a lot of different dialects. There are also regional languages from India that are a part of languages spoken in Pakistan. For example, my grandparents, they migrated from Gujarat, which is a place in current day India, and they came to Sindh, which is now a part of Sindh. So at that time, it was the partition of India, and then a lot of people migrated to different places. So that's how languages moved as well. So, for example, in my family, although we live in Sindh, this speaking of Gujarati is very popular. Like my mum talks to her mum in Gujarati, so the languages are like still spoken, and the culture is also based on that. So that's how like a lot of languages have sort of moved around. Then, for example, there is another language called Kutchi, which is a dialect of Gujarati. Like my dad would speak Kutchi at his home, and that's also a language. Like Kutch is a region in India, so that's how another language that migrated. So a lot of languages like that have migrated, and also in Pakistan, Bollywood is watched a lot. So any languages that are used in Bollywood are are sort of understood in Pakistan. For example, so main language is Hindi, but then there are also like bits of other languages. For example, I used to watch this TV show where they would use Marathi quite a lot, which is an Indian language, and I started picking up like words of Marathi in my vocabulary. So that's how you end up learning quite a lot of languages by just watching Bollywood or Indian TV shows, which are really popular in Pakistan. And then let's also discuss about the UK.
So in UK, the main language is English. There are a few regional languages, such as Welsh, Scottish, maybe a few others. And of course, there are many different accents. Some are easier to understand than others. You don't need to travel very far. Sometimes you can drive for half an hour and encounter a different accent. And sometimes it's really challenging to understand. Sometimes I don't understand a single word.
Yeah, like for example, if you go really higher up north, like northern parts of Scotland, then the accent is really different, and I don't understand it sometimes because it's just really different. And as Man already mentioned, like the accent changes quite a lot. So even in London itself, there are so many different accents. And when I was back in Pakistan, I didn't know that there were this many accents existed in the UK. Maybe I knew about some, like an English accent, maybe a Scottish accent, but I didn't know how many of these accents there are. Like every few miles, there's a new accent, which is really cool.
Yep. And as for Lithuania, so for my first foreign language, I had to choose between English and German, and I chose English. And later there was a time to choose second foreign language, and we were told we have a choice, but due to budgetary cuts, it was only Russian, so we had to choose between Russian and Russian. But nowadays I'm aware that students can choose French, Spanish, and many other languages. And inside Lithuania, there are some dialects. I would say they are less different than actual language, but more different than an accent. So, for example, my dad used to speak Samogitian, and I used to know a bit. Now I forgot.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's dive a bit deep into our language type of connections. So there are a lot of similar vocabulary in
Yep.
Lithuanian and Urdu and Sindhi and other Indian languages. We have been really inspired from the videos that we have seen on YouTube. How they mention, we can add a link in the description, but where they mention one word in a language, and for example in English, and then other people who speak different languages have to say that word in their language, and that's how they found so many like similar sounding words. So I'm really inspired by those videos, and
Same.
so we thought we could do something like that. Not everything in this video, but we can discuss a few words in this video, and then we can create a separate video about many different words that overlap between our languages.
Yeah, that would be nice.
So if we discuss about English and Urdu, because Pakistan and India, they used to be colonized by
British Empire.
by the British Empire. English was very popular at that time, and that's how the words from English have stayed a part of the vocabulary in Urdu. So there are lots of words that we say that are just English words, so we just make them in an Urdu accent, but we don't really necessarily have an Urdu word for them. So for example, like a doctor. But if you go to Pakistan, you would just say, I want to see a doctor. So then there are a few more words. For example, like if we say months, like January, February, so they are very similar to how we have in English. So if I say in Urdu, like March is March, April is April. So it's like a little bit different accent, and May is May. So they're like similar words, but just different accent. Some of the words I think are different, but they are pretty much how it is in English.
As for Lithuania, there are a few words with similar meanings or even the same meanings. Now we will give a few examples. I'll say the word in English and Lithuanian, and Gahar will say in Urdu or Hindi. So if we look at body parts, eye and teeth is akis and dantis.
In Urdu, we would say aankh, which is a kiss for yours, and dant, which is dantis for yours.
Yeah, then we can say smoke and fire would be dumas and ugnis.
In Urdu, we have dhua, and in Urdu, we say aag for fire, but I know in Hindi, I think it's agni, which is very similar to what you have, ugnis.
We will prepare a separate video where we discuss those words and much more in greater detail.
Let's also dive into some similarities and funny interpretations. We may not mention the words, but there are certain words that are very innocent in one language, but can have a very bad meaning in the other language.
Yes, we know a few examples. We will not mention them here explicitly, but we know, and let's say it's something that has a neutral meaning in one language, but it's something offensive or even a swear word in another. And that's purely coincidental.
Yeah, we have like discovered it accidentally as well.
Yeah, we discovered that by chance, where
Like-
you say something in one language and a person in another language starts laughing.
Yeah, like I've heard like things said in Lithuania which are just so like very innocent words, but I'm like, ooh, that's a bad word in my language. But so we have had this,
And the other way around.
and the other way around. What about like swearing and cussing in general? Like if I talk about Pakistan, swearing is considered not very nice. For example, it also depends like which cultural background you come from, even within Pakistan. So like depending on which class you are from, like if somebody is like really rich or if they are very highly educated, they might not be using as much swear words in their normal language. But if somebody is like not exposed to much education, they might be more likely to use more swear words. It's also that type of cultural difference that exists in Pakistan. People still use cuss words. For example, if somebody is angry on somebody else, they would use a cuss words. There are also some cuss words that are okay to use in everyday language, but there are a huge chunk of people that would just never use cuss words. But there are people who would use it. If I compare it with the UK, then using cuss words sort of is okay in a lot of contexts. Like you would use it with your friends, or you would also use it like outside in a friendly way. You could use a swear word and that would still be okay. So for some words.
Yeah, I noticed that in various English-speaking countries,
Yeah.
it is a general acceptance. I believe in Australia, using cuss words, it's the most accepted. In England, well, it's less accepted, but they are still used casually. I believe in America, they use cuss words even less.
Okay, how is it like in Lithuania?
In Lithuania, well, overall, you wouldn't hear cuss words from a president or some official person, but in real life, when, let's say, no one except your family is listening, then people do use cuss words to emphasize the importance of what they're saying. If it is something official, such as if you, let's say, even go to a supermarket or a store, then people tend to not use cuss words unless they are really offended by the situation or whatever is going on. Then they would use, and people would understand that this person is now really annoyed. But overall, cuss words are used in a private environment, but in public spaces, people tend to avoid that unless they are drunk.
Okay. So overall, in public places, they stay a bit more polite. That brings me actually very nicely to the next topic about politeness. How polite in speaking are people in Lithuania in general if you compare it with the UK?
Well, in comparison, there is a contrast between Lithuania and UK. So in UK, there is an elevated level of politeness that some people call sugarcoating, where if something is not going the way you like, but you still portray it as if it's all fine and nice, and you just mention in some subtle cues and hints that it might not be what you desire. But in Lithuania, people are more direct. If something is not going right, they immediately tell that. And in terms of how the language sounds, sometimes you can hear a foreigner saying that I thought you were having an argument, but actually that's how the language sounds, even though we are not having an argument, but for those who don't understand the words, it might come across that we're arguing or having a fight.
Yeah, I have noticed that when listening to people speaking in Lithuanian. Well, in the past, I used to think that they are fighting, but then I gradually learned that, okay, they have a very like sharp intonation, which could sound like it's harsh, but it's not actually being harsh. Like they are just speaking normally, but it can sometimes sound very like heightened. If I compare that with the UK, then yeah, in the UK, as Man already mentioned, that things are a lot more polite and there's a lot to read between the lines. So sometimes I also don't grasp if somebody is trying to give me criticism or is it like a praise, because it sounds like a praise, but I'm not sure if it's a praise. Like it's a lot of that in the UK. But in Pakistan, I think it's a middle ground in Pakistan. So people are polite, but then they're also straightforward. So you wouldn't necessarily sugarcoat a lot of things, but then there are scenarios where you would sugarcoat it. If you think that somebody else's feelings might get hurt, then you would sugarcoat it. But like I wouldn't sugarcoat, but there are people in Pakistan that would sugarcoat some things. But then in a lot of scenarios, they would just tell, even at work, if they wouldn't like something, they would just tell that, oh, this doesn't look nice, which is very different than the UK. In the UK, they usually don't tend to tell that it's not nice. They would just say something that would be in between the lines and there would be a lot left for you to figure out what is not nice and what is nice. But you can ask, but yeah, in UK it's a lot more politer. In Pakistan it's not as direct as Lithuania, but I think it's a middle ground that they would tell, but they would still be polite in some ways. And Urdu in particular as a whole is a more polite language, so people are like more respectful if they're speaking very pure version of Urdu. But in day-to-day life, yeah, it's okay, it's average.
Great. I like directness. I like when people speak direct and they say out loud what they feel, and then no need to overthink.
Yeah. Let's move on to the humor styles. So, would you like to expand on what type of humor is popular in Lithuania?
Yes, so in Lithuania, some serious jokes are quite popular. In my environment, there was a lot of all kinds of humor, from sarcasm and especially dark humor. And again, for one person, this dark humor might be a bit too dark, but I've seen a lot of dark humor in the past. And once you are exposed to so much dark humor, then that can create some kind of challenge or obstacle where other people's humor is not as funny, or your humor might be a bit too much over the top, especially since now we live in UK. Over here, I noticed by contrast, the humor is more restricted and a bit lighter.
Yeah, in the UK, it's more dry humor. Like, it sounds very polite and like people are just casually saying something, but it has a dark meaning to it, which is funny, like a sarcastic meaning. So that type of thing is quite popular, which is nothing bad, but it's just a different style of humor. And it happens with a lot of people here when I'm talking to people and then there's something humorous, but they just would say it normally and wouldn't laugh. But if I get that joke, then I would find it really funny. So yeah, it's that type of joke. In Pakistan, yeah, you would have like sarcasm, but then the thing that is really popular over there is we have a lot of idioms and phrases. So people tend to use many different examples of idioms and phrases. They're just random phrases that would mean something else. So if somebody else coming from a different culture would not necessarily know the meaning of the idioms, but that's just used over there quite a lot and it's quite humorous. For example, there's this saying called making a mountain out of mustard seeds, which just sounds pretty random, but it has, like, if somebody is making a big deal out of a situation, you would just say, oh, they're just making a mountain out of a mustard seed, which could... So that's
Interesting.
Yeah, that type of humor is quite popular.
So if I was to start learning Hindi or Urdu, then there's a lot of such idioms that would catch me.
Yeah, quite a lot of idioms used in everyday life. And even when I was in Pakistan, I didn't realize how many idioms I was using day to day, or like even phrases that I was using. But now thinking back at my speaking of Urdu, then now I realize, okay, there are so many such references that are not the direct meaning, but it's an indirect meaning of something else. So there are lots of those. So let's move on to non-verbal communication and body language, which we've already covered a little bit about Lithuania anyway, like how people can sound more that they are angry, but they're not angry. But is there anything else that you could add about maybe body language or about other like non-verbal communication in Lithuania?
Well, it would be a challenge to say that all Lithuanians use hand gestures or all don't use. It depends on a personal preferences. Sometimes I like to use hand gestures a lot, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I think it's just a waste of energy. Some people in Lithuania use various gestures, non-verbal things, winks, and some don't. It's not entirely popular, but it's not unheard of. So it's nothing much to say. So it exists.
And what I've noticed in Lithuania, like people from Lithuania, is that they have a very serious persona when you meet them. But then once you get to know them, they warm up and then you learn, oh, they're actually really friendly. But then if you don't know them, you might think, oh, that's a very serious person. Like they appear very serious and they don't smile like in general, like walking on a street, they wouldn't have a smile on them.
Yeah, that's true. So in Lithuania and other maybe nearby neighboring countries, there is a general value that it's a very good thing to appear serious. I don't know what's the point of that or what's the purpose, but that's how it is. And similar situation is in neighboring countries as well. So if you're sad, so you can be sad in the privacy, but if you are in public spaces, then you are expected to look serious. Otherwise, if a person is sad, teary, or crying in a public space, people would say that, oh, they can't handle their emotions.
Aww.
Yeah, and likewise, if a person is very happy, then in earlier days, people would say that such person has a mental health challenge because they're smiling. Well, there is nothing funny for others to look at. But now people would just assume that this is a foreigner. So it is quite valuable to look like this.
Like extremely serious. Like, yeah, I've seen that with
I'm aware that when a person from Lithuania went to other countries like UK or USA, then let's say if they are attending a guided tour, then guide pulls them aside and say, you should start look happier because you're spooking off my customers.
Oh.
This happened to one of my friends.
Oh, that's not right. Because they should be able to look however they want.
Now, for contrast, in UK, people do smile. Probably they don't smile as much as in USA, but still there is this general acceptance to look happy, look fine, and this overall uplifted mood. And I've seen some people from Lithuania or other countries where they come over to UK for the first time and they get overwhelmed by this happiness, and then they respond with some hostility. For example, if someone starts speaking to you on the street saying, "You're right, darling." I know a person who felt like responding something rude because they were feeling overwhelmed by such politeness and pleasantness.
Yeah, in the UK, it depends region to region, but in some of the places, for example, if you go to northern sides like Yorkshire, then people could get really polite and really friendly, and they would like call you darling or love, and it's quite normal for here. But I can see like a person coming from a different country might interpret it in a different way if they're not used to that language, like being that friendly. But yeah, in the UK overall, people are very expressive, and like they would smile, they would be happy, like you would hear people laughing and talking loudly. Like if you're on a public transport, so many people are talking all the time, there's so much chatter. But if you go in Lithuania, then there's like quiet everywhere. Like people don't necessarily talk on the roads. Like I don't recall seeing people.
There are loud students, loud kids, but overall this sense of seriousness prevails, and people don't like to draw attention. They think it's unnecessary attention.
Yeah. On the contrast, if we talk about Pakistan, over there, people are very expressive. Like they would talk quite a lot. If you go onto the road, there are people talking. It's just like also traffic is really loud. So because of traffic, the whole atmosphere feels loud. But it's not actually, people are not generally loud, but they are just talkative, and they would talk, they would laugh, they'd be expressive, and maybe a bit similar to the UK, just in a slightly different manner. But yeah, they're quite expressive in Pakistan. And also, like, another thing that I've noticed in terms of non-verbal language over there is people come a lot closer to you in Pakistan, where the concept of personal space is very different over there as compared to, for example, the UK. Over here, I think they would respect your personal space a bit more, or maybe respect is not the word, but they just have that concept a lot more ingrained in their brains. While in Pakistan, they're a lot more like friendly, and they would come a lot more closer to you. It's just how the culture is. And there are, like, you would still find people that stay distant, but usually it's like a lot more friendly, and they would be like sitting together, and somebody might even tap on other person's shoulder, and that would be fine in Pakistan. But I think in the UK, you wouldn't be just tapping on somebody else's shoulder. That would be like, oh, you're intruding in somebody else's personal space. How is it like in Lithuania?
In Lithuania, certainly personal space is valued. I'm aware that in Scandinavian countries, people, when they even stand in the queue, they make quite a big gap, let's say 1 meter apart. In Lithuania, it's not like that, but there is no unnecessary touching. However, it's quite popular to do handshaking. Handshaking is popular mostly by men, but nowadays handshakes gaining popularity by all genders. And I noticed in UK, handshakes is not as popular, but if I try to handshake someone, they willingly participate.
Yeah, I think it's not too popular in the UK. And in Pakistan, like, you would have handshakes between men or like between women, but usually like across gender, like men and women might not be shaking hands as commonly in Pakistan. And then, like you said about leaving space in between people on the lines, like in Scandinavian countries. If I talk about that in Pakistan, in terms of queuing or standing in a line, there is no sense of personal space there, because if you go to Pakistan and there's not usually a queue, but if there's a queue like at an airport or something, yeah, people are just standing really close to you, like people are everywhere. And also because there's like a lot of people there, it's very populated, so there's not much room for space. So there's just people everywhere.
Everyone's for themselves.
Everybody, you gotta look out. You gotta make your space and get the thing. Otherwise, it would be too many people. And there's not generally a concept of queuing either, like I already said. And if you go to paying the bills, yeah, the people might queue up, but then there's just no distance between each other. So it's very different as compared to, for example, Scandinavian countries. Yeah, that is not a concept in Pakistan, to have space between the lines.
Well, for the contrast on the queuing topic, well, in Lithuania, people do queue. Well, they like to jump the queue, or they say, you let me in and then I let you in front of me. And that's practically getting behind your friend. Whereas in UK, queues are really respected, and those who jump the queue are told off.
Oh, yeah. In the UK, like, people love to queue. Like, queuing is the part of the UK lifestyle. Like, for example, if someday I want to catch a bus and the bus is coming from distance, people just start automatically forming a queue, a very disciplined queue, and nobody jumps the queue. It's just a part of their culture. It's just really nice and disciplined in that manner. And even if there's a shop that's about to open, everybody would just form a queue outside. In Pakistan, it's very different. Like, even if, for example, you would see a queue somewhere, yeah, people would be jumping the queues, or somebody knows somebody that's standing at the back, they'd be like, oh, that's my sister, you can stand with me. Or like, there's generally not as much concept of queuing, really. People would just rush to grab something because there are so many people. If you would wait on others to queue, then you would just not get the thing. I don't know. You would just miss the time. So you just go for it. That's how it is there.
Quite a contrast.
Yeah. And in terms of hand gestures, there can also be some hand gestures that are polite in one culture but are really rude in the other culture. So I don't remember any significant ones between Lithuania and Pakistan that I have spotted, but there might be some. Maybe we should like explore more hand gestures and see if anything is rude.
Well, I noticed in UK there is this thing so-called middle finger, and in Lithuania there is a different hand gesture as well. It is less offensive, but I won't show that on the camera.
Yeah.
I don't know about any hand gestures in Pakistan. In Lithuania, I'm aware that a hand gesture that's similar to Nazi salute would be considered very offensive.
Yeah, and thinking about Nazi salute, like in a lot of countries, obviously it's considered really offensive. If I talk about in Pakistan, like when I was in Pakistan, I didn't have that much awareness about the Nazi salute in particular. So, for example, like I may have seen the picture of like Nazis back then using the salute, but if somebody like in Pakistan just waved in that manner, I wouldn't necessarily associate it with the Nazi salute. But in Lithuania, it's obviously a lot more like distinct, and people would be able to make that connection right away that, oh, this is a Nazi salute. While in Pakistan, I just might think that somebody's waving or somebody's just saying hello. I may not be able to make that connection. So I think it's just about awareness also in Pakistan. I don't think people would necessarily associate things. Some hand gestures might not even be known that these are offensive. So maybe that people might not associate it with that certain offense. So we will do some separate videos where we would like to explore speaking each other's languages in real life scenarios. So we will do separate videos on that. Would you be up for doing that?
Yeah, so I have been passively learning Hindi and Urdu. I'm not good, but I'm comfortable trying it, making mistakes, checking if I'm understood well or not well.
Yeah, and
Will you give it a try?
Yeah, I would love to. And I've been passively learning Lithuanian, but my Lithuanian skills are really basic, very, very basic, because I find Lithuanian quite a challenging language to learn. It's really good, but it's just very challenging because a lot of like endings of the words change and it's really hard to keep a track of. But I will give it a go. I would be up for speaking it in real life scenarios, see if people understand me. So I want to raise another point here. I want to learn. So for example, if somebody, a foreigner, is trying to speak Lithuanian in Lithuania, how would people react to it?
Well, people would be first very impressed because they know that the language is very challenging to learn, especially for English speakers. So they would be first very impressed, and then they would want to contribute. For example, if a person pronounces a word incorrectly or not perfectly, then people genuinely feel that correcting the person as many times as necessary until they pronounce the word perfectly is that they are doing a favor to them. They would feel that now that I taught you, now you can pronounce that perfectly without any indication that you're a foreigner. You're welcome.
Okay.
But for these people, it might come across offensive because if someone corrects you
Keeps
many
correcting
times,
you, yeah.
then you might think, what's wrong with this person? But again, for Lithuanians, it feels good to keep correcting until the foreigner pronounces the word perfectly, and it's perceived as if a person is doing a favor.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like in Pakistan, that is very different. So in Pakistan, they would really appreciate if some foreigner is trying to speak Urdu. Yeah, they would really appreciate it that they've taken the time to learn about the language. But also English is quite widely understood, so people might be able to get around just by using English. But if they are learning Urdu, yeah, that's appreciated. I don't think people would correct their pronunciation because they would just appreciate that, oh, this person is learning, and they would just leave it at there, that okay, they can use their own accent. But like, for example, if I would see somebody speaking in Urdu, I wouldn't feel the need to correct their pronunciation. I'd be like, yeah, even if they speak a bit incorrectly or the sentence structure is not right, I'd be a bit more relaxed about it, that okay, yeah, it's fine, at least they're trying, which I think is just a different culture, as you mentioned about
culture
Lithuania.
difference.
Yeah,
I can confirm when I was trying to speak at least a few words with Urdu or Hindi speakers, they were very impressed. They said, wow.
yeah.
And what is your experience when you tried Lithuanian?
Yeah, so I've had the experience what you already mentioned. People become really impressed if I speak like a few words in Lithuanian. But what you mentioned about correcting my pronunciation, that I have seen a lot, that people have always tried to correct the pronunciation, which I now understand. That's their way of trying to help me out. But yeah, if somebody doesn't know it, it could feel a bit tedious, that correcting the pronunciation again and again. But I think that's the culture difference, that we have to sort of, it's good to understand these things.
Yeah, now regarding UK and English, in UK, everyone is expected to know English, but the standard is really low. If your English is really bad, you still just have to give it a try, and people will understand, people will appreciate, unless it's total disaster.
Yeah.
But normally, with even the very basic English, people appreciate, people accept that, and they just move on. And the only place I noticed where there is a big demand for perfection was during English classes and lessons at school or university.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. But I think in the UK, what I've noticed, like you already mentioned, that it's people are expected to speak English, and I have come across scenarios where there can be certain frustrations if a person doesn't speak English or is not speaking English really well. Then there could be, like, people could feel that, oh, they don't speak English, but then they are from a different culture. Like, a lot of people are very inclusive and they would understand and they're appreciative, but there can be some people who might just get frustrated that, okay, they don't speak English. So I have seen, like, there are both sides, but I think most of people are just accepting and they appreciate that, oh, this person is foreign and they don't know English. So that's my general observation.
Yeah, I agree. And it looks like that's all for today.
Yeah. What was the most surprising or funny moment that you found from today's discussion? What was the highlight for you today?
For me, the highlight was that there are similar words between Lithuanian and Sanskrit, Hindi and Urdu. I would like to delve into that topic deeper.
Yeah. And for me, the most surprising thing was when you mentioned about the spacing in the line in Scandinavian countries, like having too much space, because for me, that's a very foreign concept. Like that, I find it really surprising, and I would love to experience it someday, see that in action, of how much space do they keep. So let us know if you have had any of such experiences that we have discussed in today's video, and if there are any other similar words that you can think of. If you speak Lithuanian and if you speak Urdu, you could let us know any other words that you have seen the overlap of, or even if like overlap from other languages. See if you can find any similar words in other languages. Comment on this video and we will get back to you. You could also write us on Instagram. We've been responding to all the comments that we've been getting on our shorts, so thank you for the engagement. And you could always message us on Instagram and we'll try our best to get back to you. If you have any ideas, you can feel free to comment here or like let us know on Instagram. And any ideas for the videos, anything else that you would like to learn about the languages or just about culture in general, or like about Lithuania or about Pakistan, just let us know and we'll try our best to answer your questions. And let us know how you liked the video. Like it, share it with your friends, subscribe. Subscribing would really help our channel grow, so help us grow. And like our Instagram account. We also have an account on all other socials. We can post the link in the description. So yeah, we would love to make more of these videos because it's been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. And we will see you next time.
Yeah, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.